In today's video, I will be giving you every NFL team's MVP for the 2023 NFL season. This season is obviously just wrapped up, at least the regular season has. The playoffs are to come, and I'll give you my predictions on those games later on in this week. But as we go now, before we get into this video, I just want to say, please like, share, and subscribe to my channel and these videos. It helps my channel out a ton and doesn't cost you a single thing. Also, I'm trying to have a goal of hitting 1,000 subs by the end of February. So I'm setting that goal for myself, and you guys help me get there as soon as possible. And we'll do a jersey giveaway when we hit 1,000. Either way, let's get right into this video. Alright guys, so here we are with our tier list, simply just an MVP to keep me in line and make sure I hit all the teams correctly. Starting with the NFC North, the Green Bay Packers, where we're going to start today. Jordan Love, I mean, just his total stats, his, the projections of where he was expected to be. He went, I believe, 4,200 yards, 32 touchdowns, and 11 picks. That's a really solid year from a guy who was effectively in his rookie year playing. So Jordan Love was the only reason they really made the playoffs, and I don't think, if anybody thought this team was going to make the playoffs, I don't think it was going to be at the hands of Jordan Love. I thought it was going to be maybe at the hands of, Aaron Jones having a really good year. But no, Jordan Love carried. Moving on to the Bears. It is 100% Coach Eberflus as the defensive coordinator. He is that MVP because there was a massive change when they took out that defensive coordinator and let Coach Eberflus step in and call the defensive plays. They don't even have a good defensive unit. Like the group, Jalen Johnson's a good player. They brought in Sweat, who's a good player. But like the rest of the unit is relatively just average players, but the coach made them play so much better. So he has to be their MVP of their team this year. Next is the Lions, and I'm going to give this one to a co-MVP, I believe the only co-MVPs on this list, and it's going to be Laporta and Gibbs for being high-impact rookies and helping this team do things that really no one thought they could really do, especially from the rookie side of things. No one thought these rookies would be the highest impact guys on this team. Moving on from there, the final team in this division is the Minnesota Vikings. And it's got to be Coach Flores. That defense is still not that great. Last year, they were very bad. This year, they got a whole lot better. Did they improve on personnel? No, probably not. They lost Zadarius Smith, brought in Marcus Davenport. They lost Patrick Peterson, brought in Byron Murphy. Are they upgrades? Are they sideways moves? Are they, downgrades? I don't really know. I'm not going to sit here and speculate on that. But what I can say is Brian Flores was a massive signing for them. They brought him in, and he made their defense play so much better than it could have been, and that is our NFC North. Up next, we have the Dallas Cowboys, and I'm going to say that CeeDee Lamb is their MVP because without him, they wouldn't be where they are. They started getting the ball to him on any play they could, and they got way better. And CD has really put himself in the top of the receiver room in the NFL, to be honest with you. So he's going to win that award, in my opinion. Next is the Giants, who are really tough to pick. And they had a crap year, and I don't know what to say about them other than Bobby Okereke wins it because he played really good at linebacker. That's about it. The Eagles are next, and for the Philadelphia Eagles, I'm going to say it's probably A.J. Brown, even though they ended the season really rough because that game stretch of 125-plus yards receiving was insane. It's just he's the only reason they even won those games. Yeah, beyond that. The Commanders, they're going to have the same situation that the Giants did, where it's hard to pick for them because they had such a bad year, but I'm going to go ahead and have to say Sam Howell kind of because their running game wasn't good all year. Their defense wasn't very good all year. And to be honest with you, really the only thing that helped them win was Sam Howell in the first half of the year. He just played out of his mind for a little while there. And, I mean, yeah, he ended out the season bad, but, the whole team did. I don't know who to blame other than, the whole team because they all played bad. But Sam Howell played really good at one point in the season, so I'll give it to him for now. Moving on to our next division, we're going to have the NFC South. And the Falcons, where we're going to start, I'm going to give it to Bijan Robinson. Yes, he was not utilized enough. Yes, he got Arthur Smith fired because he wasn't utilized enough. Yes, you can't utilize Tyler Algier more than Bijan Robinson. It's as simple as that. He's the MVP. He did have over 1,000 yards for them. That's as best as you can do, to be honest with you. Next is going to be the Panthers, and that's Chuba Hubbard. They signed Miles Sanders to be their, big-time free agent running back, and he didn't do jack diddly squat. But Chuba Hubbard came in and kind of saved their season as much as, a two-win team can have their season saved at least. He played well. That's all that matters. Moving on from them, it's going to be the Buccaneers. And obviously this one is kind of clear in my opinion. It's Baker Mayfield. He had a really good year. 4,000 yards, 28 touchdowns, 10 picks, and 64% completion. that's a pretty good year. And people are giving him his flowers for having a really solid year. However, people are not giving flowers to the guy that's the Saints MVP. The guy, I didn't do it too. I claimed him in some of my videos as, kind of a guy who upset me this year, disappointed me, if you will. Derek Carr, he had 3,900 yards, 25 touchdowns, 8 picks, and 68.4% completion. I mean, they're almost identical stats. 100 less yards, 3 less touchdowns, 2 less picks, though, but 4.5% more completion. That's a really good year. And, stats don't tell the whole story. Yes, Derek Carr did some things here and there that just weren't great and kind of cost the team at times. But, ultimately, he was good for the team, and I think he'll be better next year coming into his second year in the same system. Moving on from this division, though, going to the NFC West. First, we're going to start with the Cardinals. This is Jonathan Gannon. When this guy was hired, everybody was questioning whether this guy was ready to be an NFL head coach. It wasn't a good look, and obviously it's because he's a defensive coach, and nobody likes defensive coaches in the NFL offensive age. But, he got every single game to be competitive, it seemed like. With that roster, one of the worst rosters we've ever seen in NFL history, and you're competing in games, that's enough to ask for, in my opinion. You don't have to do basically anything else to get an MVP of your team. Moving on from there, we're going to go with the Seahawks, and this is going to be Julian Love because he saved their season. Yes, they missed the playoffs, but the only reason they had a chance to make the playoffs was because he picked off Jalen Hurts twice, and if he didn't do that, it is what it is. He played well. They benched Jamal Adams for the season pretty much, and he came in and played well. That is what it is. You could say Geno, but he had a down year compared to last year. Didn't have the same playmaking ability he did last year. Then you maybe say DK or Kenneth Walker, but the offense just didn't seem that great this year. But the defense played generally well. Witherspoon was really good, but I'm going to give it to Julian Love because he made plays when it mattered most. Moving on from him, the Niners. Do we have to talk about this? It's Christian McCaffrey. 2,000 total yards. Get out of here. After the Niners, we go to the LA Rams, and it's Matthew Stafford. He's elite. He can be elite whenever you need him to. And with a roster that wasn't all that talented, outside of Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua, Matthew Stafford, Aaron Donald, and Kyron Williams, and the 2 rookie edge rushers or whatever they had, Byron Young, and I don't even remember the other one's name right now. They didn't really have much on this roster, yet they made the playoffs and were a solid 10-7. I think that's an overachieved season and a very good one. Side note, not to be super, speculative here, but what do you guys think about Matt Stafford being in the Hall of Fame? Let me know in the comments down below. Starting with the Bengals in the AFC, this is a tough year for them because Joe Burrow got hurt, and so I'm going to have to give this to Trey Hendrickson. 17.5 sacks, a great year for him. The defense didn't even play all that well, but he obviously showed up in a lot of moments this year, and so he wins the team MVP, in my opinion. The Browns, Joe Flacco. He played 5 games and had 323 yards per game, 13 touchdowns, 8 picks, and 60% completion. He's hailed as the best quarterback in the league right now because of that stat line, pretty much, and him playing well. He got a lot of touchdowns, and he threw a pick or 2 while he's at it. That's fine. I don't really care because, if you're just airing the ball out, good, great, I don't care. But, if you really think this is going to continue for the long run, you're probably a little ridiculous. It's a great story. It's awesome, but there's a reason he was unsigned up until this point. Moving on from them, Baltimore. We're going to go with Lamar, obviously. 4,400 total yards, 29 total touchdowns, and 9 turnovers. Good year, for sure. Can't argue that. But I don't think he's the real league MVP, and I'll get there in a minute. Moving on from there, we're going to go to the Steelers, and I think it's another co-MVP, Mike Tomlin and TJ Watt. Mike Tomlin, you don't win as many games, 10 games, without Mike Tomlin. You probably don't win more than 4 games without Mike Tomlin. He saved the season. It's a Mike Tomlin thing. You don't lose with him. Period. End of story. And TJ Watt, he had 19 total sacks. He had, led the league in a lot of stats. Comparatively, and for his positional and all that goodness. And, versus Myles Garrett, versus Micah Parsons, the defensive player of the year front runner somehow over him. He had better stats than both of them combined, basically. So, TJ Watt, Defensive Player of the Year, he's the best defensive player on the planet, and it's not a debate. It simply isn't, and if you think it is, you're just wrong. End of story. Moving on from them, we go to the NFC East. For the Dolphins, it is Tyreek Hill, 1,799 yards, 13 total touchdowns. What do I have to add there? Nothing. The Patriots, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say for a 4-win team, their MVP was their tight end, Hunter Henry, because it seems like anytime he showed up to play, the team won. That's all I have to say. The Steelers game, the game, I believe it was after that with Bailey Zappi and him, there was just games with Hunter Henry, Bailey Zappi connecting, and it just worked, and that was when they won games. So I'm giving it to him. The Jets are a very hard one to do because while their defense still is their defense, and it's pretty good, I'm going to have to give it to Breece Hall. 1,500 total yards and 12 touchdowns. I mean, they don't have a good offensive line. He still ran around it, made plays, receiving, rushing, and, I mean, you don't have offensive output without Breece Hall this year. End of story. And finally, for the Bills in this division, we're going with none other than Josh Allen. 4,800 total yards, 44 touchdowns, 21 interceptions or turnovers. Yes, that's a lot of turnovers. He had 16 or 17 total interceptions. But one big stat I like to point out is the Bills had 33 touchdowns and 1 turnover in the red zone this year. That is because of Josh Allen. Josh Allen is by far the most dominant quarterback in this league. Throwing, running, you can't stop him. Doesn't matter. He's just a different animal. He's the real MVP this year, in my opinion. You don't have 4,800 yards and 44 touchdowns and not win MVP. Oh, you had too many turnovers. If you're arm punting down the field, I don't care. I'd rather you do that than throw a slant that gets jumped because you suck at throwing the football. Either way, that's just, it's fact of the matter. 2 divisions left. In the AFC South, we have Coach Shane Steichen for the Colts. I mean, you have to give it to him because he comes down here in his first year, gets a very good year. They don't get in the playoffs, but have a very good year. And, like, you lose your rookie quarterback who's your number 1. You bring down your former backup from Philly, Gardner Minshew, because he can teach your young guy the offense. And guess what? He does do that, except he also has to play. And he plays well because you and him have a good compatibility, and you trust him. Shane Steichen's the MVP of this team. If he wasn't there, they wouldn't have had this success. The Texans, it is obviously C.J. Stroud. 4,100 yards, 23 touchdowns, 5 interceptions passing. I mean, a great rookie year, nonetheless. He's probably the offensive rookie of the year. End of story. The Titans, I have to go with Derrick Henry. He had a really good year, and, halfway through the season, Tyjae Spears kind of started taking his reps, and it felt like he might take over the team before Derrick Henry was even off the roster. But he recaptured that crown and took it over in the last few weeks of the season, just became himself as usual. For the Jaguars, I have to give it to Travis Etienne because he had 1,000 rushing yards, 11 rushing touchdowns, and 500 receiving yards. It really seems like whenever that team succeeded, Travis Etienne was being the success. He was doing everything. So I have to give it to him. Now for the final division, the AFC West, the Broncos. I could give it to Russ. Statistically, had a very good year. Yes, the stats don't tell the whole story. Yes, he was a frustrating quarterback at times. However, you can't argue with the stats. And when you get pulled off the team because you get pulled off the starting lineup because your team doesn't want you to get hurt, and they'd rather not get hurt than make the playoffs, and the players get mad about it, you see who the real QB1 is. You see what the guys think. All the players were upset about that, according to reports. So, Russ is a good option, but I'm giving it to Courtland Sutton because he didn't get benched, and it just seemed like he was making game-winning touchdown after game-winning touchdown this year. Anytime they won a game, it seemed like Courtland Sutton had a big hand in it, so I've got to give it to him. For the Chiefs, none other than Patrick Mahomes. I mean, you can't really say anything different. With what they had to work with, yeah, he had 4,100 yards with no help. I mean, Travis Kelce even only had about 900 yards, which is a low year for him. So, yeah, Mahomes did really well. The Chargers, it's going to be, to me, Keenan Allen. At his older age, he had 1,250 yards and 7 touchdowns. A lot to ask for an older receiver that's, probably past his prime at this point. But he was able to stay healthy while a lot of his teammates weren't, and he kept them, at least trying. And finally, the Raiders. I'm going to give it to the head coach, Antonio Pierce. I mean, he came in after McDaniels was fired and rallied that locker room together, unlike anyone has for the Raiders in probably 2 decades, excuse me. I can't remember a time where anyone has put the Raiders locker room like he had it. And they clearly trust head coach Antonio Pierce. I hope he gets that job down there. But either way, let me know what you think about this video. Let me know who your favorite team's MVP was this season. And make sure you like, subscribe, all those good things. And I will see y'all in the next one.